But right now, our fall film series concludes with the true story of two men, a black classical pianist and his white driver, and their journey through the segregated South. Jeffrey Brown is still at the movies for us.
It's a familiar premise. Two people, different as could be, take to the road together.
I've never had fried chicken in my life.
You people love the fried chicken.
You have a very narrow assessment of me, Tony.
Yeah, right? I'm good.
But the particulars are new and true.
This gentleman says that I'm not permitted to dine here.
I'm afraid not.
Director Peter Farrelly, best known previously for over-the-top romps like There's Something About Mary, Dumb and Dumber, and Shallow Hal, recounts the initial pitch that won him over.
It's a true story about a black concert pianist named Don Shirley, 1962, lived above Carnegie Hall, and his record company was sending him on a tour of the South, and he was afraid of going, so he hired a bouncer from the Copacabana, like the toughest bouncer, an Italian guy, 5th grade education, racist himself, to drive him through the South for protection. And I said, it's a home run.
Mahershala Ali, an Academy Award winner for his performance in Moonlight, stars as Don Shirley.
Don Shirley really liked Tony from the jump, even in his inappropriateness, because he looked at him as almost like a case study, like he wanted to sort of observe Tony Lip.
Viggo Mortensen, known for Lord of the Rings and many other films, plays Shirley's driver.
He just says what's on his mind without, he doesn't have much of a filter.
Why you breaking my balls? Because you can do better, Mr. Balalonga.
Their relationship, despite initial apprehension, drives the film.
You know this is pathetic, right? Tell me what you're trying to say.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll miss her.
Then say that.
The movie's title is taken from the actual Green Book, a travel guide used by African Americans to find welcoming hotels and restaurants in the era of segregation. Ali learned of the book working on the film.
Were you surprised to learn about it?
No, not at all. I wasn't surprised to learn about it, but I wasn't aware of its existence.
Mortensen said he first learned of the guide through a popular children's book.
And it showed how there were certain gas stations they couldn't go to and certain places they couldn't eat, and they had to just look at this book all the time just to stay out of trouble.
You don't know your own people. You, Mr. Big Shot.
Here, men of different races must find places to eat and sleep in the Jim Crow South.
I think people will learn things about that time, and
the sundown laws, for instance.
Yeah, sundown towns.
It wasn't across the board everywhere throughout the South, but there were curfews, and if you were black and out and it was dark, you'd get arrested. And period.
Just for being on the street.
In this early scene, over their first shared meal, the tensions and differences, not only over race, but class and education, are apparent.
How is that?
Salty.
Have you ever considered becoming a food critic?
No. Not really. Why, is there money in that?
I'm just saying you have a marvelous way with words when describing food.
Such opposites. The concert pianist has 5 doctorates.
Yeah.
The other guy's got a 5th grade education. He's a racist.
And fists.
He's got street smarts, but that's it. That's his only smarts. And the other guy's brilliant.
The son of an Episcopal priest and a schoolteacher, Don Shirley grew up well-to-do in Pensacola, Florida, and dreamed of becoming a classical pianist. At 18, he had his solo debut with the Boston Pops, but the American color line excluded him from a classical career. Instead, Shirley created his own musical niche, blending jazz, cabaret, spirituals, and chamber music into his repertoire. He wrote several symphonies, cut many albums, performed around the country, including in the Deep South. As in all road films, the car, in this case a Cadillac Coupe de Ville, and time driving around in it are crucial.
Pick it up.
The fact that they started 2 very different places, and by the end of the film, there's a cohesion and a respect for each other.
And I'm starting to get
Respect that eventually finds Shirley dictating letters that Tony sends to his wife back in the Bronx.
Put this down. Falling in love with you was the easiest thing I've ever done.
Nothing matters to me but you. And every day I'm alive, I'm aware of this.
It's a friendship made possible by the intimate isolation of being on the road.
They both kind of allow themselves to hear the other person eventually. They allow themselves to actually hear what the other person is saying, which is the beginning of communication, the beginning of being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
When you have two people who are that different and they find themselves in a confined space for a long enough time, they can have a positive and evolving effect on one another.
Although the Green Book tells a historical story in, at times, comic form, all involved saw it speaking to our own times.
As bad as things are, and they're bad right now, they can get better. And this is a good example of how they get better. When people listen to each other and learn from each other and realize ultimately we're all the same.
Green Book opens nationwide this week. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown at the Toronto International Film Festival.